Hey guys, this is Akshay Sura. Today we will be looking at um, how to run a commerce minion using SiteCron. And we run into the usual problem with what we have, where it's all interval based, with how the minions are scheduled, similar to what the challenge was in Sitecore as well. So using SiteCron, obviously, you get the option of using a cron expression to run it at a specific time in the day, week, multiple days, as well as you have the option of running it on a specific date and time as well. So it's up to you how you want to run it. And you have all the full capabilities of SiteCron in order to do that. So today we'll take a look at that to see how exactly we got it to run and what does it take, and this is going to be in the next version of SiteCron, so hopefully you'll find some use for this. First, let's look at, so this is my commerce demo. I have SiteCron installed on it, created a new job which is of type Sitecore Commerce Minion. Looks pretty same, so we're just calling an iJob of type run minion now, specifying the cron expression. And again, just to kind of recap, you could do scheduling however you want, days of the week, months of the year, anything you can come up with, along with having an option of to run it one time exactly at a specific time. You could extend the iJob I've written to pass in parameters and items, but at this moment, all I need is the full name of the minion, which is what is needed to run a minion. The environment name, I have a field for it, but right now I'm not really using it, but you could, depending on how you scale it, and things like that, you would end up needing the environment name, which we'll use later on, and have again the basic stuff which comes out of the box for the execution reports as well as the stats. But this is how I set up. So for now, I set it up so that it runs at 9:05. My time right now is 9:03. So let's see what happens. So as you can see, I'm running my commerce engine in debug mode just to kind of show you an output pretty easily, and as well as show you, the breakpoints which hit when this gets run. And in our instance, we do have a need for the job to be run at specific times during the day, along with the interval based. I just, so from my end, we would probably set it up as an interval once a day, probably in the regular minion scheduling, and then add more on top of it using the SiteCron scheduling. It's 9:04, one more minute, and then hopefully we should start seeing it. So what I did do is I wanted to run, so based on what we did, I wanted it to run the pending order minion. And so I just took the namespace from the Postman, and then that's what I used. So let's wait and see what happens. So we're getting there. There you go. It just hit. So essentially it got the message, it executes it, and then when you look at it, the pending order minion was run. So this kind of gives you the flexibility to run it, and it is very useful when you want to run something on time and the actual job executes pretty fast, but there is a lag between. So 9:05 is when it was supposed to run. And let me open up some logs. Hold on. So as you can see, the job executed exactly at 9:05, and that's the benefit of SiteCron, right? It runs it exactly at that specific time. So you can specify it in seconds as well based on the cron expression. And if you notice here, the actual the quartz worker actually executed on time. But when you look over here, by the time we sent the message to, so the message was sent to Commerce, partly it has to do with us running in debug mode, but it also has to do with processing. So it took a while for the message to come through. We picked up the message and then we processed it. And by the time that happened and we sent a message for that to be executed, it took a whole 8 seconds in my environment, which is local. But in yours or on a server base, it might be smaller than that. But just account for the few seconds being off, depending on how critical this minion is for your company. Now let's start jumping into some code, and I'll show you what I did. So as you can see in configure services, where we are registering the service API block, and essentially what that does is we can call it as long as you have the authentication cookie in here. Essentially, what we're saying is, hey, there is a run minion now. I'm expecting parameters from it that registers it, and then now at this moment for that we are creating a command controller, and for that route we are going to listen to it. We are going to make sure that it has the minion's full name and environment. If it does, and we are mandating that it does, just trying to get policies. In our case, there isn't a policy which we are passing through really, but you could pass a third parameter. I'm not making it mandatory, but if you have specific policies, we can pass that through. And here, calling the run minion now command and passing all the info to a custom command called run minion command. So in here, what I'm expecting to do is I'm expecting to get some information, get the context, and then I basically set up to run the pipeline, and then you end up running it. So I am using the iRun minion pipeline, which comes by default with Commerce. Set all the attributes which we need, including the environment and the argument for it with the information, and execute it. And it basically, this takes care of running the minion. So the flow is that something comes through the API, gives us the command, we initiate it, and we run it. So let me show you the same thing inside of how we would run it in the in Postman. So if you look over here, we're getting the token, and if we run, and the other thing to point out too is that we're hitting the shops API. So when you are in the code on the storefront, you get access to the shops container and nothing else. So what we did is we basically added the API to sit. So when you to API to sit in the shops container through via the proxy, and the proxy is basically getting called. So if we look at the code in the website, which we'll do next, you will know that it will pick it up from there, and then we are essentially on the engine side, and then we are calling the minion from the engine side. So let me pause this real quick and then show you the website. As you can see, the status is 200 for us. That's just how it works. 1 second. So in here, we just get the data map from the job, and then we essentially get the minion full name, the environment, when we pass it into the proxy command. So the proxy we would need to regenerate once we push the code we had for the engine. And then if you look in here, so our command comes through. So it's pretty simple for us to do container dot run minions now, and then pass in the parameters for it to send the API call, and that's how we're trying to get it done. And hopefully you'll find this useful. If you do, if you need this, it's in the next version, but I haven't released the next version of SiteCron yet. I'm making a few tweaks. If you need this, just get in touch with me and I'll be more than happy to give it to you. As usual, Stack Exchange, a great place to ask questions. Also, you might want to You might want to also post it on Slack as well. Thank you so much.